Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing yet another movie review for you all. This movie is a horror film from Australia, English language, released in the year 2025, directed by Sean Byrne, and this film is called Dangerous Animals. So Dangerous Animals is about a tour guide who goes out into the ocean on his boat and he allows people to swim with sharks. And so this is on a lot of people's bucket lists, and so he has a lot of customers. But what the customers don't realise is that when he gets out into the ocean, his true motives become apparent. He's actually a sadistic serial killer who likes to feed his customers to sharks and film it for his own pleasure. So these particular customers, they get onto the boat, and before they realise that he's a sadistic serial killer, it's already too late, and now it's a fight for survival. So what happens at that point on is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Dangerous Animals. I was really excited for this film for three reasons. Number one, it's an Australian cinematic horror film. Now, not a lot of horror films here in Australia get a cinema release. It's all mainstream Hollywood. And so to actually get an Australian horror film with a cinematic release, that was something that I could be excited about, because this was going to be, it had a lot of attention, it had a lot behind it. And so I thought that was something exciting. Number two, you have a shark film that is directed by Sean Byrne. Now, Sean Byrne, he directed The Loved Ones, which I really liked, and also The Devil's Candy, which is a film I didn't love as much as a lot of people, but it was still very interesting. And so to have him in a shark film taking itself seriously, I thought that was definitely something that was very intriguing. So when shark films, ever since Jaws, shark films really haven't utilised their full potential. Not a lot of films take itself very seriously. They're very low budget, they're very silly, and that was a great shame, because if it utilises its full potential, the shark is both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. And so it's the unknown. It's a completely different world in the ocean, but it just doesn't utilise its potential in a way that I thought was very satisfying. So every now and then you might come across a decent shark film, but they are few and far between. So coming into a Sean Byrne shark movie, I thought this is a recipe for success. The synopsis sounded very, very interesting, and so I couldn't wait to go and see it. And then also the positivity that this movie has behind it. On festival circuits, the reception that this movie got was very impressive. And so it is very difficult to push aside that hype, but I was hoping that all those elements combined would make something that I would remember and I would happily go out there and recommend to you all. And after watching Dangerous Animals, I couldn't help but feel as though I watched a completely different movie to the majority. This was a film that really let me down, and I actually thought it was very, very ordinary. And it's going to surprise a lot of people to say that. You're probably expecting me to love this film, being an Australian horror film that had a lot of accolades, but I just don't share that that passion for this film, for reasons that I'll go into a little bit later. But what I liked about Dangerous Animals, the few things that I did like about this film, is the way that the movie was shot, and basically paying homage to classic horror films. Now, you have the homage to Jaws, obviously. It's a shark film. Shark films have a lot to owe to Steven Spielberg's masterpiece, but you also have that blend of Wolf Creek thrown into this film as well, so it's paying homage to the Australian side of horror. And so you have the serial killer and what the vehicle that the serial killer drives. It has a lot of reminiscent qualities of Mick Taylor, and so that was something that I really liked. It had the ochreish sort of nature of this serial killer, reminded me of this guy, of Mick Taylor. You have this guy that is very friendly, it's very out there, but you don't feel too badly upon him, therefore you can understand why people would gravitate to him. But then by the time you realise his true motive, he becomes a completely different person. And so that's something that I really liked. It set the mood very well, and it had a very ominous tone to it. You have also shark sequences that I thought were fairly effective. So there were moments that actually had my skin crawling. As I said, it's a terrifying thought of the ocean and sharks and being at the mercy of sharks, and the movie really utilises on that primal fear. And so there were some set pieces that I thought were fairly decent, and that was something that I appreciated. And the cinematography, the production, as I said, very, very good. But unfortunately, the biggest issue to this movie is that the script is not very good at all. It is very predictable, and there's just not enough sharks to it. And the movie gets sidetracked by a love story that just has no humanity behind it, because of the fact it's very lazy in its writing. These characters are non-existent. You're supposed to get the impression that they genuinely love each other after spending one night together. So they're not together, they haven't been together for 30 years, they're not dating, they just had a one night stand, and all of a sudden you feel as though their love cannot be torn away, that their love will conquer evil. But I just didn't get any of that, because the character development was non-existent. It didn't want to flesh out character relationships, therefore it just didn't really work. So you have the acting from the main character, this woman, she's the final girl. A lot of people people really like this character, but for me, I didn't like her at all. Once again, she's very empty and cardboard cutout. You have her love interest that I thought was just non-existent. I didn't really care about him whatsoever. But I will say that Jai Courtney's performance was absolutely phenomenal. So Jai Courtney as this killer, I thought he had a lot of charm to him. He had a lot of charisma, but then he had another side to him that when he flips, he's absolutely terrifying, which reminded me of Mick Taylor off Wolf Creek. That these villains were very iconic, but I couldn't help but feel that this villain in this movie deserved a much better film. So you have, they're out in the middle of the ocean, it's a completely different universe, but it doesn't concentrate as much on the sharks. It wants to concentrate on this fight for survival that was just, I didn't care about. So you have these characters that I just thought played second fiddle to the killer, and there was no one that could match that killer. So I was always captivated by when Jai Courtney was on screen, and I was captivated by when the sharks were on screen, but I didn't get captivated by that fight for survival. And so the story, I thought the script really let the story down, and that's what prevented me from caring about what was going on. So the film's not very long, but it feels like it goes for a long time. The film's not as scary as it really could have been. I thought the suspense levels were there to a degree, but then they do wear out pretty fast, and so that was a big problem I had. The movie is very, very predictable. It does have a lot of cliches behind it. I knew exactly what was going on, so that does eliminate a lot of the suspense. Just when you feel as though the sharks might get this particular person, I felt I've seen this type of thing before, I know what's going to happen, and that's exactly what happened. And so that to me was a major letdown. And so overall, I just didn't feel as though this movie realised the film that it really could have been, and this is the reason why I didn't really subscribe to the popular belief that this is a good movie. So I thought as though the poor script really let down a great villain and a great setting, and to me, I just thought as though this could have been so much more. If it wanted to pay attention to character relationships, it needed to have a lot more emphasis on it. I just didn't believe anything that was going on. The script was really bad. If you liked it, and you feel free to share your opinions, but for me, I wanted a lot more from this film, therefore I'm only going to give this movie 1.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching movies, and I'll see you later.